Imagine you have just landed £100,000 sitting in your bank account. Maybe it is an inheritance, a company bonus, or the result of years of disciplined, quiet saving. You're sitting at your kitchen table, staring at that six-figure number on your screen, and one massive question is running through your head. What do you do with it next? Do you drop it into the stock market, use your tax-free allowances, and let the relentless force of compound interest do the work on autopilot? Or do you take that cash, use it as a 25% deposit to buy a £300,000 house, and use the power of the bank's money to build your wealth? This is the great British financial debate, and today we are going to settle it once and for all with real 2026 numbers, actual tax laws, and the cold, hard mathematics of the United Kingdom market. Let us start with the stock market, because this is the option that most people in Britain completely underestimate. If you invest £100,000 into a diversified index fund today, history says you are on track for a very reliable journey. Over the last 30 years, the flagship FTSE 100 index has delivered a compound annual return of 7.2% when you reinvest the dividends. If you look at the medium-sized companies in the FTSE 250, that average return rises to a staggering 8.7%. For a sensible, realistic calculation, let us assume your diversified portfolio grows at an average total return of 8% per year. If you let that £100,000 compound at 8% for 10 years, your portfolio grows to roughly £215,890. Stretch that out to 20 years, and you are sitting on £466,100 of liquid wealth. And here is the beautiful part about this option. You do not need a bank to lend you a single penny. There are no credit checks, no solicitors, no letting agents, and no tenants calling you at 2 o'clock in the morning because the boiler just burst. You simply buy the fund and go back to sleep. Even better, the United Kingdom has one of the most generous tax shelters on the planet. It is called the Stocks and Shares Individual Savings Account, or ISA. Inside an ISA, every penny of dividend income and every single pound of capital gains is completely, 100% tax-free, forever. Now, you cannot dump all £100,000 into an ISA on day one, because the government limits your annual contributions to £20,000. But smart investors use a strategy called BED and ISA. You put £20,000 into your ISA on day one, and place the remaining £80,000 in a standard, taxable brokerage account. Every April, as the new tax year resets, you sell £20,000 from the taxable account and move it into the ISA. Within 5 years, your entire £100,000 is completely shielded from HM revenue and customs. But now, let us flip the coin. Because property investors have a massive unfair advantage that stock investors simply cannot match. It is called leverage. With £100,000 in cash, you do not buy a £100,000 property. Instead, you go to a mortgage broker, put down a 75% loan-to-value deposit, and buy a buy-to-let property worth £300,000. The bank lends you the remaining £225,000. Suddenly, your £100,000 of cash is controlling a £300,000 physical asset. Historically, UK house prices grow at around 5 to 6% per year. That sounds lower than the stock market's 8%, right? But here is the magic of leverage. That 5% growth does not apply to your £100,000 of cash. It applies to the full £300,000 value of the house. If the property value grows by 5% in year one, the house is now worth £315,000. You have just added £15,000 to your net worth in 12 months. On your actual cash investment of £100,000, that is a massive 15% return. This is the exact reason why property has historically been the primary wealth creator for the British middle class. But before you rush out to call an estate agent, we need to talk about the brutal reality of buy-to-let in 2026. Because the government has spent the last few years quietly turning the property market into a financial minefield for individual landlords. The first blow lands before you even get the keys. It is called the Stamp Duty Land Tax Additional Property Surcharge. If you already own your own home, buying an investment property triggers a heavy 5% tax surcharge on top of standard rates. Let us run the math on your £300,000 buy-to-let purchase. You will pay 5% on the first £125,000, which is £6,250. You will pay 7% on the next portion, up to £250,000, adding another £8,750. And you will pay 10% on the final £50,000, which is £5,000. That means before you pay your solicitor, your mortgage arrangement fees, or your structural surveys, you must hand over exactly £20,000 in cash to the tax office on completion day. Right out of the gate, 20% of your hard-earned £100,000 is completely gone. Then we have the mortgage. The Bank of England has held interest rates at 3.75%, which means buy-to-let mortgage rates are hovering at a painful average of 5.64% for a 2-year fixed deal. If you take out an interest-only mortgage on your £225,000 loan, your monthly interest payment is £1,057. If your property rents for an average of £1,500 a month, you might think you are making a comfortable profit. But once you subtract letting agent fees at 10%, landlord insurance, annual safety certificates, and a basic maintenance budget, your actual cash flow is virtually zero. And that is before the tax trap known as Section 24 snaps shut. Under these rules, individual landlords cannot deduct mortgage interest from their rental income before calculating income tax. You are taxed on the gross revenue, not your actual profit, and given a weak 20% tax credit instead. If you are a higher-rate taxpayer, earning over £50,000 a year from your day job, this single rule can easily turn a cash-flowing property into an active monthly loss. To make matters worse, the government is increasing property income tax rates from April 27, raising the basic rate on property income to 22% and the higher rate to 42%. So, when we look at the raw numbers over a 10-year horizon, who actually wins? If you put £100,000 into stocks and shares ISA and let it compound at 8%, you will have a clean, tax-free pot of £215,890. No stress, no work, total liquidity. If you buy a £300,000 property, assuming 5% annual capital growth, the house will be worth roughly £488,000 in 10 years. After subtracting your £225,000 mortgage, you are left with £263,000 of equity. On paper, property wins. But once you subtract the initial £20,000 of stamp duty, 10 years of maintenance, letting fees, potential void periods, and the inevitable capital gains tax of 24% when you sell, the gap completely vanishes. Property requires a mountain of active work, legal liability, and stress just to break even with a simple index fund. So, here is the real answer to the £100,000 question. If you value your time, your peace of mind, and want a simple, compounding wealth machine that runs on autopilot, stocks are the undisputed winner. You drop your money in, we invest your dividends, use your ISA allowances to keep the tax office away, and enjoy your life. But if you want to use leverage, have the appetite to run a property business, and want a physical asset that forces you to save because you cannot panic sell a house on your phone at 2 o'clock in the morning, then property remains a powerful tool. But the wealthiest people in this country do not choose one. They do both. They use the stock market to build liquid, tax-free wealth, and they use property leverage to build long-term, generational security. The action step for you this week is simple. Decide which path fits your current lifestyle, your stress tolerance, and your time. Because the only wrong decision is to leave your cash sitting in a low-interest bank account, letting inflation slowly eat your hard work. If this video helped you see the UK investment market in a new light, do me a favor and smash that like button. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and tell me in the comments below, are you team stocks or team property? Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.